Hello and welcome to Taru Talks, where we talk about AI developments and its impact on enterprise. I am Vignesh, co-founder at Taru AI. Taru is started with a vision to empower organizations to adapt AI safely, meaningfully, and productively. We are not just looking at use cases and tools. We are looking at a cultural shift, a mindset shift, and an attitude transformation. And that workforce, which is adept and adapt to face the AI onslaught, is going to be a resilient organization, is our belief. Today on Taru Talks, we have Shankaran Sitarama, who is a veteran in the IT industry, who's been in the industry for more than 20 years. He's seen the transformations from cloud, from everything connected to AI and before. In his latest avatar, he's the co-founder at Traction Layer, an AI enterprise that helps AI startups scale to market and also build infrastructure that enterprises can use. I would let Shankaran Sitaram just describe Traction Layer a bit more for our viewers.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Shankaran Sitarama, and I am the co-founder of Traction Layer AI. And thank you, Vignesh, for being on Taru Talks. It's always been a pleasure to talk to you. And whatever we are trying to do is exactly in line with some of the things that Taru is trying to help organizations. I think, like you likely very nicely put it, adapt and adapt AI, so that you can try to build that kind of a momentum in the organization and try to leverage AI try to do it in a more in a way that everybody is involved, so that you get that kind of a resonance and that kind of a push in terms of trying to achieve productivity and then gains. So that I think is very important. And towards that, something that Traction Layer has been working with customers as well. We work with mid-market. We also work with smaller companies as well, mostly trying to help companies with AI security, AI governance, and so that goes towards a broader umbrella topic of trust that we build in the AI systems. And I think that trust that we build in AI systems is laying the foundation for enterprises to actually start adopting. With once you know that all of the foundations are there in place, there are governance policies, there are things which are there which are specific with respect to our industry. So let's say an enterprise is it's an automotive enterprise or a manufacturing. Related to that, what are some of the typical guardrails that needs to be there? And once those things are there in place, then they can have a very comfort feeling in terms of trying to take the next step in terms of adoption. And I think that's where you guys are seeing that as well. And I think that is something that is so vital to organizations.
Yeah, I think a brilliantly put problem niche to target, because a couple of studies have pointed to the low uptake in pilots at an enterprise level. There are not many use cases that are coming through. We are still going through the hype cycle, as it were. And one of the key reasons is the security, the governance perspective, because the organizations would like to have it structured in a way that helps navigate them through the cyber security issues, because the data is at risk. Their businesses are definitely tied to the data risk that these companies have. So can you just elaborate a little more on the kind of threats that are there? If you can, just with a few examples also.
That's a very good question. So what is happening is, in terms of cybersecurity, for more than 20, 30 years now, 2 to 3 decades, we have all worked, and I've worked in cloud security, cybersecurity with organizations. So we have tried to understand a whole bunch of stuff, and it's always It's a game of trying to one-upmanship, if you will, like, between the hackers and the ethical hackers kind of thing. So that's where you have the red teaming and blue teaming kind of thing. But with AI, right, with LLM being a non-deterministic one, it kind of poses a new set of challenges. It's exposing a completely new attack surface. And that's where all of the cybersecurity professionals are kind of, really trying to work to be able to get these things. So I'll give you some examples of some of the top concerns of these threats with LLMs that, even organizations like OWASP. So they identify what are some of the top threats, right? And with LLMs, right, one of the first one is prompt injection. Okay, so with prompt injection, there are two types. One is the direct prompt injection and an indirect prompt injection. And I'll just give you an example, right? So because these are new attack surfaces, you will see that I can tell something for the LLM and the LLM is going to give me an answer, right? And let's say I can tell the LLM, hey, can you help me create this code wherein my application is able to do this thing? That's possible, right? So it automatically gives you a whole bunch of code. What if I tell the LLM, can you write a malware for me? Or can you write a virus for me? Or can you, compose an email that is like a phishing email, right? That will actually mask certain buttons or certain things and embed it with another URL. So these are direct prompt injections and these are easy to detect, right? So let's say if you're monitoring each of these prompts that go into the LLM, you'll be able to say, hey, if somebody asks for these kind of things, do not do it. Okay. And so you're giving the system prompt, or you're trying to set up saying that you're asking the LLM a clear rule, do not do this. But then there are other things that people come in and say, okay, forget about all of your other instructions. Now follow my instruction. Okay, do this. Or they could intelligently put it up and say that, okay, I'm trying to play, let's try to do a role play. Okay. And as far as the role play is concerned, I am acting as this one and you are acting as something else. And then I try to have a conversation. So these are like, intelligent ways of masking the prompt and trying to get the LLM to do some things. Okay. So there are indirect prompts as well. And in an indirect prompt, I will see that, let's say that there is a report. Okay, I will show you the case of a benign prompt and then a prompt that's a problem. So I'll say that, hey, I've got a report that I've generated or somebody has generated and sent me a report from a business intelligence software, right? So I'm trying to say, summarize this report for me. This is a clear benign prompt. It will summarize the report and give you a summary. Okay, and then I will say, look, the report is actually placed here. It's placed in a SharePoint or wherever it is. And here is the URL for that prompt, for that report, and then try to summarize this report for me. So this is a benign prompt, right? And then I will say, okay, I've got some 6 or 7 reports that I now need to summarize. And here are all the reports, the URLs for all of those reports. And then let's say one of them is a location, which is an infected or a mal location, right? And so that URL, one of those URL, I slip it in, which is basically pointing to a site which I should not be going, or it's going to infect the thing, right? So these are kinds of, that's an indirect prompt. So now you need to have, it's a completely different kind of a ball game from what typical things used to be with networking and network attacks and all of that stuff. Now I need a completely very different kind of, it's a new threat, right? And then there are data poisoning kind of thing. So let's say, and this is all the more difficult to locate, right? As it starts going down, it's all the more difficult to locate. So I try to train the LLM with some data, okay? And let's say I start using or training the data with trying to indicates certain new terminology, right? New words and new things. And then I start talking these words. And then the LLM also starts talking these terms. And when this happens, you're now trying to influence the LLM to do certain things with certain things. So these are things like, and then using that, I will be able to exploit certain things from the enterprise. Okay. So these are things which are really things that CISOs and chief information security officers need to really look into the new attacks. Okay, and of course there are a lot of sources and things which are available and defense mechanisms available, but it does expose some of these things which we need to be aware, right? But that's a very good point. And these are just two examples.
Yeah, I think very well explained, I would say, because prompt injection and the other influencing thing that you mentioned is not very widely known. People are mostly used to talking about the frameworks of prompting, but not so much what prompting itself can be used for. But I think a very interesting point that you made about how the prompt can be influenced to talk about, especially in a role play, and that's a huge threat for somebody who works as a product organization. Let us say there is there's automotive manufacturers, because their trade secrets are there in the design of components, and someone decides to use LLM to talk about it. The data goes to the OpenAI servers or any other servers that they are using, and the rival company just has to do a role play, like you said, saying, I am this is, you are, think of it, you are ABC, and how would you design this? So the entire thing is already to the rival company, but at the heart of it are the employees. Another very prominent thing that has come up is shadow AI, because whether people like it or not, organizations, you talked about chief information security officers. I'm sure there are protocols that are being built as we speak, but employees continue to use it for productivity. They have seen productivity gains accruing to them. So how is this threat going to evolve over a period of time, and what are the mechanisms that you would suggest to solve or address this issue?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good question. So what happens is shadow AI is a reality. That is something that CIOs and CISOs need to understand, that employees are going to use it. Okay, now you can get on top of it by trying to guide them, by trying to direct them in proper usage of AI, correct? Rather than trying to say, no, don't use AI. And if that is the case, it's not going to work, right? So rather than doing that, what are the safer methods of trying to use it? Okay, so let's say you're trying to use some public tools like OpenAI or any of those kinds of things, right? And if you're using OpenAI or Claude or any of the tools that are out there, you are now, which are like the frontier models, right? They provide you excellent accuracy. They provide you excellent things for the tasks that you're trying to achieve. And that's why people use it in the enterprise. Rather than trying to prevent that, you try to provide guardrails within your enterprise, right? So these guardrails are things, a bunch of policies that over a period of time, you can start accumulating these policies and try to say, what's the better way of trying to do it? And then trying to prevent some of the other things that you're trying to do. Like, let's say you try to prevent your data from going into some of these public things, correct? So, but employees would be wanting to do that to achieve their task or their work, right? So then how do I do that? You try to provide some kind of, some kind of a hosted open source LLMs. You provide them with options. You can provide them with options and say that If you're trying to use something generic, then you can try to use public. But when you're trying to use with company data or with things which are important, then try to use these models which are hosted by us within our enterprise or within a managed environment, right? And in that managed environment, you can provide similar accuracy to some of these public models as well. But then you are actually having all of those guardrails right there. So always try to understand that one thing that companies need to understand is the reason for shadow AI or the reason for people trying to use these things is that, the workforce is intelligent. The workforce is now trying to say, how do I do things that I can improve my productivity or that I can improve the quality of my work? Okay. And so that is something that is not to be ignored. That is something that is good, right? You need to harvest that. You need to channel that in the right direction in order to achieve some of this stuff. And for doing that, you need to have the right guardrails. You need to have the right kind of foundations, the right kind of training for them, and then provide them with the right sources so that you enable them rather than trying to, prevent them. And I think that is something that we are exactly working on those things at Traction Layer. We have what is called as, I know I don't want this to be a marketing spiel from our side, but we have something like a walled garden, like a private AI enclave, right? And private AI enclave provides companies with those kinds of open source models that are enhanced with reasoning, and so that it kind of performs somewhat very much equal to some of the frontier models. So companies can leverage those things. They can build their own stuff like that, but essentially enabling their employees, right, to use it properly.
Yeah, I think since you also went with your marketing pitch, why not? Taru is just that.
Yeah, Taru is
Exactly
trying to
that.
help companies as well. Yes.
We want to enable people to use AI responsibly, safely. And as you said, workforce, like it or not, is going to adapt to AI tools in their productivity enhancing endeavor. But how do we use it safely is what we are on a quest for. So coming to models, I think you spoke a very important part of private walled garden for models. I think, if you could just elaborate on it, because securing an AI chain is not just at the end, which is just prompting and teaching them right prompts, those kind of things, but also more back end of usage of models and what kind of data goes in, comes out. So there's so many things. Could you just talk over that for our viewers?
Sure. Yeah. So there are a lot of these open source models, right? And there are open source models that are coming from. So actually, if you might be surprised that there are more than 1,800 open source models, AI models. Okay. And the top things that we normally talk about are Llama, DeepSeek, or even ChatGPT 5 OSS currently as open source state. So there are several models that are available. Each of these models are geared towards certain problem that they're trying to excel in. Okay, so there are multiple dimensions, right? So you have this different set of models that you can choose from, and we provide you the capability, we provide enterprises the capability to do a benchmark, right? And you can just run a benchmark based on what I want to achieve, not just the standard benchmarks like MMLU and all of that stuff that people claim when they try to release a model. They basically go against standard benchmarks. But we help customers, mostly enterprises and industries, try to develop these kinds of benchmarks on things that are more important for them, for their business, right? Something that is very important to their industry, to their business. So they can create a custom benchmark and then run a bunch of selected models and create which one is good. And then you can also select what kind of metrics you want to rely. You want to rely on accuracy. You want to see latency. I want to see, adherence to guardrails, adherence to security or compliance, cost. Any of these things are metrics that you would want to see the performance of different models. So we help companies do that and run these benchmarks within these kinds of models that they select. And then they can select any of these kinds of models. Now, the other thing is, how do they improve the accuracy? We provide those kinds of what we call it as the value added services on top of these models. We bring them up to speed by providing that planning and reasoning engine that can be attached to this. Something like, for example, for code generation, you want to use in an enterprise, let's say you're trying to use it for different kind of chat applications, right? For HR chatbot or customer support chatbot. That's a different type of usage versus I'm trying to use it for code generation. And for code generation, what model should I be using? Or for chat generation, what should I be using? Or if I'm trying to use it for some agentic AI, like let's say some workflow agentic AI, which is used somewhere in the business, right? Business process. How do I use and what models to use? So the ability to intelligently route your requests to some of these models within the model garden based on some kind of an objective function, whether it could be cost, it could be performance, it could be category of application that is using. So that is possible. And then all of these guardrails that we spoke about being made available within this walled garden, right? So let's say when you sign up for a walled garden, when an enterprise signs up for a walled garden, they say that, hey, I need to have these kinds of models that are available. And then we provide those kinds of optimization within this garden and the intelligent routing and all of that stuff. But now within these things, you are also having all of those guardrails that are built in, all of those policies that are built in. And this whole thing is managed by us with one of the best infrastructure because it's running on any of these hyperscalers, right? Or specialized infrastructure that runs on GPU, that runs on. So enterprises don't need to worry about some of that basic stuff. All they get is a performing model that is up 24/7 with all of those kinds of applications that are there. I mean, SLAs that are available, right? And using those SLAs, they can do that. The guardrails, like for example, AI firewall that we talked about, already are applied on this. All of the security tools are applied on this. All of the governance things are available. All of the compliance things are available. So in US, for example, for healthcare, you have HIPAA kind of compliance, right? Which is basically on the patient privacy protection and their data. Their data is not exposed, right? So that kind of stuff automatically is provided in the guardrail. So things like that, they can, companies and enterprises can leverage some of these things. And that's how we are trying to help them. And that's where an AI enclave will help companies.
Wonderful.
Right?
I think it's the need of the hour. And as just a summary is that responsible AI is not just checklists anymore. It is more attitudinal, behavioral, because there are, as you said, the attack surfaces are multiple surfaces. So everybody is in effect a soldier who is defending their enterprise AI solution. So thank you very much for that wonderful and lovely explanation of all the threats, the opportunities that are existing, and of course what you are building to solve for those. Pleasure having you here.
Yeah, thank you very much. It has been really a pleasure talking to you. And also I look forward to more conversations, seeing more conversations that you are having with several other people from the industry to get to know all of these things. And I think that's where a lot of leaders come in and then try to look to some of the other kinds of problems and solutions that people are overcoming as they work with, in a responsible way, try to adopt AI.